Amara had always promised herself she'd never go back. Lagos was her new life, bustling city where she could bury the memories of her village, where shadows of a past she didn't fully understand lingered. Yet, here she was, gripping her phone, heart pounding as her mother's voice shook with desperation. Her father was ill, too ill to recover without the family by his side. "Amara, please. It's serious," her mother pleaded, her voice crackling over the line. Amara's mind raced, her old fears battling with the guilt gnawing at her. She could barely remember the village now, yet certain memories, sharp and chilling, refused to fade. The shrine, the terrifying Eziogwu shrine hidden deep in the forest. The old oracle with his painted face had said things she couldn't forget, warning her about something terrible should she ever abandon the village. She had been young, too young to understand, but she remembered running, her mother's firm grip on her arm, pulling her away from the oracle's strange, penetrating gaze. Now, that village seemed like a distant nightmare. Her life was here, her career and comfort away from superstitions and shrines. But her mother's words were unwavering. "We need you, Amara. The curse. It's getting worse. We can't escape it." Amara shivered. The curse. It was a word she hadn't heard in years, a ghost from her childhood that had always felt more like a threat than a myth. She thought of her father, of her mother's pleading voice, and knew she couldn't ignore it. The next morning, Amara left Lagos. She drove out of the city, leaving behind the skyscrapers and neon lights, the freedom she had carved out for herself. As the road stretched on, taking her back to the past she had so long avoided, a strange dread settled over her. In her rearview mirror, Lagos faded away like a dream, while the familiar, unsettling shadows of her old life loomed closer. And just like that, her return to the forgotten crossroads began. The journey seemed cursed from the start. Amara's car, so reliable in Lagos, suddenly began to stutter and jerk as she drove into the countryside. The smooth asphalt gave way to bumpy, cracked roads, and the lush green of the forests seemed to crowd around her, narrowing the path. The further she drove, the heavier the air felt, as though the trees themselves were watching her return. She checked her phone for directions, but the screen showed no service. Frowning, she tried again. No matter what she did, the connection stayed dead. A cold chill crept up her spine. She had traveled this route many times as a child, yet now it felt foreign, unsettlingly different, as if the village was rejecting her return. As the sun dipped lower, she spotted a familiar landmark, a crumbling stone statue of an old deity by the roadside. It was cracked and weathered, barely standing after years of neglect. Her grandmother had once whispered that these statues were guardians, meant to keep evil spirits from entering the village. But Amara could only think of how eerie and silent it looked now, its empty eyes following her as she passed. Finally, she reached the narrow dirt path leading into her village. Her heart pounded, louder with each bump in the road. At the edge of the village, a group of children playing with sticks stopped and stared at her, their eyes wide with an almost fearful curiosity. An elderly woman in faded wrappers stood nearby, her gaze piercing, unreadable. As Amara stepped out of her car, the woman crossed her arms, her voice barely a whisper. "The prodigal daughter returns, and with her, more darkness." Amara stiffened, uneasy. Her mother had warned her that she might not be welcomed warmly, but she hadn't expected this outright hostility. She forced herself to look away and took a deep breath. The shrine, the curse, her father's illness, whatever she had come back to face, she knew there was no turning back now. The air was thick with tension as Amara stepped into her family's compound. Her mother, looking older and wearier than she remembered, rushed to greet her with a desperate embrace. Behind her mother, she saw her father, frail and gaunt, lying on a wooden bed, his breathing shallow and labored. Seeing him so vulnerable, her heart twisted with guilt and sadness. "Amara," her mother whispered, gripping her hand tightly, "you must go to the elders. They said the curse grows stronger with each passing day. They believe your return will either save us or doom us." Amara swallowed hard, her mind racing. What curse, Mama? You keep saying it like it's real, but I don't understand. Her mother's eyes filled with fear as she recounted the story. Years ago, when Amara was a child, her family had made a promise to the Eziogwu shrine. They vowed she would remain in the village as the shrine's future custodian, a guardian of its sacred rites. But, fearing the restrictions it would place on her life, Amara's father had taken her away, breaking the vow and angering the gods. Since then, misfortune had followed the family: crop failures, illness, financial ruin, and now, her father's illness, the final mark of the curse. Amara felt a chill as she remembered the oracle's haunting words. She thought they were nothing more than a childhood scare, yet here she was, bound by a promise she never made. But what can I do? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Her mother's grip tightened. They say only a ritual can lift the curse. But it's dangerous. Amara, the elders have warned that it could claim your life if the gods are not appeased. The thought terrified her, but she knew there was no other way. Her family was suffering, and she couldn't abandon them again. Summoning courage, she nodded. Then take me to the elders, she said, her voice steady. If this is the only way, I'll face whatever lies ahead. Amara's heart pounded as she approached the elder's hut, her mother by her side. Inside, four elders sat in a semicircle, faces shadowed and unreadable. The air was thick with incense and the faint scent of herbs, swirling around her as she knelt before them, bowing her head in respect. One of the elders, an old man with piercing eyes, gestured for her to rise. You know why you are here, he said, his voice cold, yet carrying the weight of tradition. The vow your family broke has left a stain that only you can remove. Amara swallowed, nodding. What must I do to lift the curse? The elder paused, then pointed to the heart of the village, where the old Eziogwu shrine lay hidden in the forest. You must return to the shrine, he said, but not empty-handed. There is an artifact, a small stone figurine, that was taken when you left. Return it to the shrine, or the curse will consume your father. Confused, Amara shook her head. I don't remember taking anything. The elder's gaze hardened. It was hidden among your belongings the night you fled. A last, desperate act by your father to keep you safe from the shrine's grip. Yet by taking it, he chained your family to the curse. Amara's mind raced. The small stone figurine, she vaguely remembered it, a curious trinket she'd thought was a toy as a child, now long forgotten somewhere in her belongings. The elder continued, his voice softer but firm. There is a second part, he added. To ensure the gods accept your return, you must leave a piece of yourself at the shrine. A piece of myself? Amara echoed, her voice shaking. What does that mean? A lock of your hair, your blood, something of your essence, he replied. The gods must see your sacrifice. Amara felt a chill deep in her bones. She was terrified, yet resolute. If this was what it took to save her family, she would do it. I'll go tonight, she said, her voice steady, and end this curse once and for all. As dusk settled, Amara found herself at the edge of the forest, clutching the small stone figurine she'd unearthed from her old belongings. The air was thick with tension, the trees casting long shadows that seemed to reach for her. Her heart pounded. Each step toward the shrine weighted with fear and determination. She had come too far to turn back now. With each step, memories flooded her mind. The oracle's face, the fearful whispers of the villagers, and her father's weakened body lying helpless. The shrine loomed ahead, a moss-covered structure partly hidden by vines, as ominous and ancient as she remembered. She knelt, placing the figurine at the shrine's base, her hands trembling. Eziogwu, I have returned what was taken, she whispered, her voice shaking, and I offer myself, my blood, as a symbol of our family's repentance. Taking a small knife, she cut a lock of her hair and pricked her finger, letting a few drops of blood fall onto the stone. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a low hum began to fill the air, the shrine seeming to pulse with a dark, ancient energy. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared before her, the oracle himself, or what remained of him. His eyes were dark, filled with judgment and fury. "Do you think your offerings can undo your betrayal?" he hissed. "The curse is bound to your very blood." Amara swallowed her fear. "I'm here to make things right. I was a child. I didn't understand, but I won't run anymore." The oracle's gaze softened slightly, as if seeing her sincerity. Slowly, he reached out, and for a chilling moment, his fingers brushed her forehead. A sudden warmth spread through her, intense and overwhelming. She squeezed her eyes shut, bracing herself. When she opened them, the forest was silent. The shadow had vanished, the shrine lay still, and a strange calm had settled over her. She sensed it. The curse was lifted. Her family was free. With tears streaming down her face, Amara turned away from the shrine, knowing she had truly left her past behind. This time, she was finally free.